Is all good? The board met in closed session. The board adopted the findings of the arbitrator and approved the dismissal of employee number 5508. The motion was made by Mr. Rockwell, seconded by board member Ferris, and we adopted the arbitrator and approval. It was a unanimous decision. And now I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of January 16th, 2025. Before we have the call and the pledge to the flag, I'd like to thank the Los Flores Lions out there for being our greeters tonight. I don't know if they can hear us, but good job. We will start this meeting with the pledge to the flag led by our student member, Brody.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to have a moment of silence, and as we have that moment, I'd like everybody to keep the victims of this devastating fires in Los Angeles in their minds. Thank you. Move on to item number 1, adoption of the agenda. Any changes?
No changes.
Move on to item number 2, good things. Anybody? Mr. Ferris.
Yeah, I just have to share about the best thing I've seen in a long time was our greeters tonight. They also gave us notes, personal notes, thanking us for the work we've done, and in a couple of them it mentions the tough decisions we make on their behalf. I just have to say, after a moment like that, I just feel like our future is in good hands, not because of us, but because of them. So life doesn't get any better than that, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 3, approval of the minutes of the special meeting of December 12th, 2024, and the regular and special meetings of December 19th, 2024. Any changes?
No changes.
Minutes will stand. Move on to item 4, programs and presentations. Item number 1, recognition of outgoing board member. We will meet up front. Coming up, who's coming up with me?
Mike, remember, you got to be on air. You need to be on microphone.
Mr. Rockwell has decided to leave us for a job elsewhere, so he will be leaving soon. He turned in his resignation effective, I believe, 60 days from today. So we wanted to present him with a plaque for his many years of dedicated service. Mr. Rockwell, it's an honor to work with you.
Yeah, you bet.
Enjoyed most of it.
No, you've enjoyed more than I have.
I know. But thank you. You'll be missed. You're going to have some shoes to fill. So safe travels.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll talk to you soon. Chris, where'd she go? Thanks for letting us have them for a while. So and Mom's over there. So, but good job. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
You know, Kurt has been a board member for 19 years in our district, and he was chronicling just some of the big things like the earthquake and the COVID and all the things that we've done over the last 19 years, and this district is in a really good shape due to your leadership and the team that's worked alongside you. So thank you, sir. And not only has he led locally, but also statewide through CSBA, California School Boards Association, as a regional delegate. And so statewide students have benefited under your leadership, and we appreciate you.
Move on to item 2, local control accountability plan update. Dr. Safko.
Good evening, President Scott, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Moore, staff and community. As you are aware, in June 2024, you adopted, or our board adopted, a new 3-year local control accountability plan. The broad outline of this plan. The broad outline of this plan will continue to guide the work of the district and through June 2027, as it is a 3-year plan. So each year, our staff works with the community and our educational partners to review the data, gather input, and adjust the actions and services as appropriate. The LCAP serves also as an action plan that accompanies our district budget. This presentation will serve as our mid-year LCAP update. We always like to start with our North Star, which is our district vision, growing a community of engaged learners, connecting to future opportunities through innovative education. So in the new era of accountability, which doesn't seem so new as we're about 10 years in, right? The state set forth 8 state priorities. And they're in 3 categories. So you have the conditions of learning, which makes sense. That's the environment, right? And then the student outcomes, and then also the engagement metrics in that priority. So along with each one of the categories, we have the required metrics. We're not going to be reviewing all of the metrics tonight, but we'll be hitting the high points so we can have a status of our district journey or story to this point. So basic services, as you might imagine, includes the percentage of highly qualified teachers, access to instructional materials, and of course, implementation of state standards, and also course access. The student outcome metrics are, of course, our state assessment results, our A through G completion rate, which helps us know how many of our students are prepared to go straight to university or Cal States, our CTE pathway completers, and all our English learner data. And of course, we have other student outcomes which we choose, which are secondary DNF rates, and then the number of our 12th graders who are completing at least 1 semester or 2 semesters of college credit. School climate data is comprised of suspension and expulsion rates, student engagement, as one might expect, attendance, chronic absenteeism, graduation rates, and then of course parent involvement, which includes how do we obtain input and decision-making with our educational partners, and of course our parental participation. So we're very happy to have a lot of our educational partners in the audience who join us in this work. Along with the North Star of our district vision, the board, as you may recall, set new goals, right? And so 4 out of the 5 goals guide the LCAP. So we have our academic program, we have our student engagement, we have our community and family engagement, and we have effective instruction and leadership. Our current LCAP was based on 24-25 demographic data. So we had about approximately 5,100 students, 10 schools, about 240 certificated staff, about 360 classified staff. Our 23-24 unduplicated student count, we had 5.5% of our population were English learners. About 55% were our low income, and just less than 1% was foster youth. And that's important to know, as we have local control of our local control funding formula to meet the needs of our students who experience the most challenge. All right, we're going to start with our academic outcomes. So in the spring, 3rd through 8th graders and 11th graders take the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress. It's called CASP or SBAC. And the dashboard indicates that we maintained about 1 point difference from our performance the prior year. And another way to look at the data is that about just shy of 40% of our students met or exceeded our English language arts standards. The other piece of our CASP is math. Same students take that assessment. Similar data, we maintained our progress, our distance from standard, and about 26% of our students met or exceeded standards. What's new, not to us, but the dashboard is reporting out our California science test data. So only 5th graders, 8th graders, and we choose 11th graders. The law technically says, sometime in high school, but it makes sense to co-locate that check-in or that checkpoint with our 11th graders. So overall, 24 to 25% of those students met or exceeded their science standards. So another data point that we collect and monitor is our A through G completion rate. We have an anomaly in our data that you have noticed. We are unpacking that to determine what the cause was. We do know as of this afternoon that similar to last year's data, about 70 to 80 students met the A through G criteria, but unfortunately that's not what's reported to the state, but that is our reality. So we're working on our systems and data collection to ensure that we report accurately. So just for the audience's sake, A through G means there are certain requirements that students must meet if they desire to go straight to university or Cal State. And that's one of the metrics as they would be college or career ready. Another measure of college and career readiness is CTE pathway completion rate. So this is a bright spot. Out of all of our graduating students, almost 30% completed at least one CTE pathway. So that makes them career-ish ready. Another measure of college readiness is the advanced placement passing rate. So some of our courses are AP or advanced placement, and students can choose whether or not they take the AP exam. And if you earn a 3 or higher on the AP exam, most colleges will count that as having taken a college course and give the students credit. So that's another metric. And so 25% of our students who took AP exams had a passing rate of 3 or more. This is a great bright spot, especially as you look at the data and how it shifted over last year and the next slide I'm about ready to show you. So about 52%, this is a little complicated. So when you look at the dashboard and you have the college and career readiness indicator, if you look at the detailed reports, you'll see that the state measures students who are deemed prepared and then students who are deemed approaching prepared. So in the prepared category, 52% of our students met the prepared through having completed 2 college credit courses with a C or better, C minus or better. So that's extraordinary. To have 73 students who have achieved that. It's a definite bright spot. And you'll notice this is it looks like a sad slide, but it's a happy slide, right? So we had 10 students who were in the approaching category because they had completed at least 1 college credit course, but that number is lower because the number of students completing 2 or more was much higher. So that's another celebration point. We are also required for SB 39 to communicate and be transparent with the board and the public about our Algebra 1 grade distribution, because as you know, right, in high school, Algebra 1 is your gateway to future mathematics success. And so this graph demonstrates the grade distribution of our freshman Algebra 1 students. So the majority passed without a challenge there. We're also required to report this data by student group, so you'll see that it's pretty consistent across the student groups, which is what we want to see. We don't want to see disparity there. So you can see that data broken down by student groups. One of the student groups that's highlighted in any LCAP is the English learner student group, because as non-native English speakers, they have, they have assets and a challenge to accessing the academics, right? And so the state gives California schools 5 years to have an English speaker become proficient. And that may seem like a long time, but if you're 4 years old and you start in the system, or 5 years old, that's a tremendous journey for our students, and our teachers take that seriously and provide those direct services. So we're happy to say that 45% of our English learners are making progress. That's a bit of a decline, but we had an increase last year, and so that's kind of challenging to maintain, but we're pretty consistent with the state, so that's a good bright spot. Again, we are given 5 years to hopefully have an English learner be reclassified to English proficient. And so our reclassification rate last year was 13%, which is an increase of 3%. And as we get to 2027, you'll notice that that's not true data, that's target data. So I thought I'd place that there for you as a visual so you could see what are we striving towards. So by 2027, we want to ensure about 20% of our English learners are reclassified each year. All right, graduation rate. This remains a challenge. Of course, we want to increase our students, our percentage of students graduating. So we declined by about 1%. And as we approach 2027, our target is at or above 90%. As you know, if you're not in school, you're not likely to learn and obtain all of those proficiencies. And so one of the data points we monitor is attendance rates. And when our superintendent does her report, that's one of the data points that she highlights at each meeting. So in 23-24, our attendance rate for students was 92.72%, just shy of a 1% increase. And so to have a reasonable target by 2027, we'd like that to increase to about 97%. All right. Chronic absenteeism. So chronic absenteeism means that a student has missed 20% of all the school days. So if you think about, there are 180 school days in a year, 20% of 180 is 18, right? So, no, that's not right.
10%.
Yes, got it. I caught it, okay. So when you think about that, that is nearly 2 months of school of lost learning, so that's pretty critical. So we're thankful that the state requires us to monitor this. So this is a slide where you want to see the data decrease. Let that sink in for a minute, right? You don't want to see higher chronic absenteeism numbers. So let's celebrate that we nearly declined by 3%. So celebration there. All right. Suspension rate. This is another slide we want to see decline, right? Because if students are suspended, they're not in the learning environment. So about 8% of our students were suspended at least one day. And again, a celebration point is that it's decreasing. We're trending in the right direction. And by 2027, we want to see that decrease by about 2% more, or at about 5 or 6%. This slide kind of outlines the many actions and services we have in Goal 1, which is our academic program. So you can see all the various academic supports we have in the district. Our Goal 1 estimated expenditures is about $2.2 million. All of the actions are on track mid-year, and the expenses as well are on track. All right, Goal 2, actions and services, that's our student engagement goal. So we have a lot of really critical services here. The public may not know, but the state doesn't consider counselors and TK-8 an essential service, and so our district was at the forefront far before the pandemic, far before our own crises here in Ridgecrest with our earthquakes, and we've chosen as a board and as a community to prioritize social emotional learning and supports, and so this is a bright spot in our community. The expenditures are significant because you've got a lot of personnel in this and also part of home to school transportation. So the estimated expenditures are about $5.3 million. The actions are on track and the expenses are on track as well. Goal 3 is really important to the LCAP because if we don't partner with our educational partners from parents to community, we are not having the significant impact that we'd like. And so this is a huge priority in our district to engage our community and family members. The expenditures are about $240,000. Our one action is on track and our expenses are on track as well. Our Goal 4, this is professional development to build our teacher capacity and leadership capacity. As you know, if we're going to have high achievement, we want to have the capacity of our staff to do that. And as we know, learning truly never ends. Our actions are on track for this goal and as well as our expenses. Those are the highlights of our data story of the district. Do you have any questions? Would you like to discuss any of the data points? We're happy to do that with you.
Mr. Gilmore?
Couple things. You know, I looked at I studied these test results last night and the night before. I was looking at the elementary schools, and, you know, I looked at Intercurrent, awesome scores, 52 and 42 was their average. Richmond had a high of 46. Las Flores, 43. And so, I mean, I saw some higher numbers. And then when it gets to the junior high, it just caves. I mean, we have math at one junior high at 15. English was at 33. And the other school was 23 at math, and 34% met the state standards. So I guess my question is, and then we go to high school, and they seem to recover in the English, you know, where they go 67 last 2 years ago and 55%, and they go 24 for it dipped this year to 24 for the math for 11th grade. And so I guess, what are our plans? Because it seems like it's been like this for a while. I mean, granted, we had COVID, we had situations, and I know the math teachers over at Burroughs are awesome. I don't know them as well at the junior high. And I did notice I noticed that our graduation requirements is for math is 2 years, and for English is 4. I know in the state it requires 3 for English, but we choose to have 4. And so how many kids are not taking math as an 11th grade, and then they have to take a test? So I'm wondering, is that a situation that we can remedy or fix? Because I know if I didn't have math all year, and then I took a test, I'm probably not going to do very well. And so I don't know, what are we in a process of doing anything that maybe fix that, where we have math or something, or?
Yes, I think that the challenge is comprehensive. So I'm going to start with the tool or the measure itself, if you'll allow me to do that. This isn't a root cause, but it is a factor. So prior to COVID, we had computer adaptive assessments. So the students would respond to a prompt, and the system was intuitive, where it would validate that it wasn't just a lucky guess, right? And it would adapt to that student's measure of how deeply they had mastered their grade level standards in English language arts and math. And what most people don't realize is now the test is static. And so it's about 25 to 50 questions. So if it's valid and reliable, our state assessment, but it's very different. It's apples to oranges to the way the students were tested prior to COVID. So it's called an abbreviated assessment at this time. So there's going to be a higher rate of error, if you will, right? So if you only had 25 questions and you missed 2 or 3 of those, then obviously the measure of meeting standards is going to be quite far away if it were not comprehensive. So that's not the reason, but it's important that you know that that is a factor,
Okay.
in my professional opinion.
So, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. And in the high school, in regard to our one comprehensive high school, right, we also have Mesquite. And I'm very thrilled that we'll have High Desert School, so that's a bright spot too. So we're creating more opportunities for our students. So let's look at our journey just a little bit. So we did have a Department of Defense Education Agency grant that just timed out this past May, and it was to increase the math performance of our middle school and high school students. So we were able to do some significant work in the pipeline of math achievement. To your point, we identified in middle school there tends to be a drop, right? And so we took a look at our curriculum and our, if you will, our standards mapping, and made sure that we are aligned to what are the standards being measured and how are we ensuring that our students are supported in that, in their courses. We also added 2 or 3 new math courses at Burroughs, if you will, to make it more relevant, because we know research and just kids in general will tell you, if that learning is meaningful, I'm going to be much more engaged in it. So if you recall, we kind of did some backwards mapping for that 3rd year of math. We prioritized making an Algebra 2, financial Algebra 2 option. So that's a response to how did we think about what we'd offer. So to kind of entice and engage our students who, since we don't require a 3rd year of math, might they be interested in that for their college and career? And then when we found success there, we then broadened that to Algebra 1. So the majority of our students are enrolled in Financial Algebra 1 at this time. We don't yet know the impact. It's been challenging. This is a sensitive topic, so I want to give this sensitivity to this statement. We have struggled, just like every other district in California, with attracting and retaining highly qualified math teachers. So so what did the district do about that? We went on an international search so we could have content experts, especially in secondary.
So does the test, like, let's say at the junior high, does the test allow us to, when we find out, okay, can we look at the test scores and look and see which students are struggling and be able to put them into some remedial study group or something to help them? Because I think a lot of kids, I remember when I got in math, when I was in math, if I didn't understand it, it's one concept to the next concept, and if you don't get this one, then you're in trouble on the 3rd and 4th one. And, some of them are just afraid to ask for help, maybe. I don't know. But is there a way that we can find those kids and be able to find a way to help those kids in the junior high that are struggling with this, with the math issues?
The answer is yes. If you had articulated very well what is the journey like in terms of our assessment scores from elementary to middle to high school, the board accepted a vision for our Title I money in 2017, where we chose as a board and as a staff to use our Title I money to support an intervention and collaboration model at the elementary sites, and many of you have commented on that. And so that is called the response to intervention model. And what you do is, instead of waiting for like the one test in the spring, you do those, we've called them benchmarks or their progress monitoring. So you really want to respond in real time. You know, and some of the sites that you mentioned, they might have 2 or 3 interventions. So they're rapidly diagnosing, here's a gap to your point, here's that specific target or standard. And how are we going to double dip? My elementary friends know what that means. We're going to double dip that intervention and dose it, right, maybe before school with some of the programs that you've approved, after-school programs that you've approved, or even diagnostic programs that you've approved to supplement our math curriculum or English language arts. So the challenge in middle school is finding that time, because it's a very old model. It's not anybody's fault. It's that industrial model where you have, you know, you go and you sit in your square for 48 to 55 minutes and you get your scoop of English language arts. You get up, the bell rings, you go sit down and you get your science scoop. So one of the advantages to the reorganization of the district, converting 6th grade back to elementary, is now all of our 6th graders are going to have that advantage and that opportunity to be rapidly diagnosed and intervened upon. And it will also create space in the junior high now that we have all of our Valley 7th and 8th graders there. Our hope is to design a master schedule or reappoint the advisory time to use that for intentional and rapid interventions. So we've created opportunity with that reorganization.
Thank you.
I'd just like to add a little bit, and I appreciate, Mr. Campbell, how you started with the fact that our teachers are working very hard, and we do have wonderful, dedicated teachers. And so just wanted to reiterate that. And as we can see from Dr. Savko's comprehensive response, so many layers and facets. And one of the parts of your question that we are also, so knowing that it's a whole continuum, and it's not just a one-year issue, but we also are looking at it in 11th grade, and our high school team is owning it and diving in and looking at it. And what's interesting, in a class of approximately 350 students, 99 11th graders are not in math. And so that's kind of what you were talking about, that 3rd year of math. And so when we know the state is expecting 3 years, it's not a graduation requirement, but it's an expectation. And when we're testing math in 11th grade, and when we have almost a third of our students not in math, there's a systemic issue that we're actually working with our high school teams about and say, okay, how do we address this? How do we build a system that is supporting? And the fact that we now have a solution that is getting us highly qualified math teachers on a more regular basis, rather than a revolving door of substitutes, which we have had in recent history in our middle schools. You know, we're building this pipeline. Again, that's the whole continuum. We're hitting it from multiple angles to solve the problem, and just wanted to highlight a couple of those. So thank you for the question.
And you know, I've been over there and I've seen the math teachers and I've worked with them. I mean, before I got on the board, I was subbing a couple times over there, and they did an awesome job. So I mean, I know sometimes kids just don't take tests seriously, and you know, and I know that's maybe part of our problem. But I just want to see us do better, and whatever we can do to fix it, I'd love to see it happen. Thank you.
Thank you for the question and the opportunity.
Any further questions from the board, staff, community? Brody.
So the first question I want to ask is on the California science test. Looking at it here, 24.61% meeting or exceeding the standard.
Oh, no. I'm pulling up the slide.
Yeah,
Okay.
man, there's a lot of slides.
Yes. Well, you're telling me. All right.
So, you know, I'm looking at the graph here, 56.92%, nearly met. So, you know, in theory, close to meeting that standard. How is that gap going to be fixed?
That's a extraordinary, insightful question. So as you can see, Brody, we have, what's interesting is just 5th grade, just 8th grade, just 11th grade, you know, take the science assessment. When the science assessment first rolled out, The state had, I think, run out of money, or they didn't apportion money to build those interim assessments. So you may remember that from middle school, taking the interims in ELA and math, right? So recently, the state has released interim assessments, and so we now have an aligned metric of progress monitoring, to your point, because before, you don't. You have your curriculum and your curriculum assessments, which may or may not be fully aligned to the state. So I would say now that we have better tools, we can intervene in that science achievement as similarly to what we would do in math and ELA.
And the second question I wanted to ask was about the AP testing.
Yes.
I took note on it. Only a quarter of the people enrolled in AP courses had passed it with a 3 or higher. How is that gap going to be closed?
That's a great question. So unlike the state assessments in ELA and math and science, even if a student is enrolled in advanced placement, which obviously is like an honors advanced course, right? With a college equivalency, if you pass that assessment, you actually are not required to take that assessment. So this may not capture all of the students who could have taken an assessment.
Right.
And we actually do have students who choose to test even if they're not in a class, because you're allowed to do that, which I think is great. So I don't necessarily say that we have a strategy there other than aligning the rigor of our courses so that if a student does elect to take their AP exam, that they're best supported in achieving that 3 or more.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions or comments? Dr. Moore? Or Mr.
Just a
Ferris?
comment. Great questions, Brody.
And I think we'll look further into advanced placement, because I was realizing that the report that there's multiple ways to look at data. And the report that we're pulling that 25% from is that 25% of the students who met the college and career indicator met it that way. And there are different ways to meet it. So there may be another way of looking at AP data that we need to just double check based on the rosters, like Dr. Savago was saying, who's in the class, who took the test, and how they did. And so I think that's something that we'll look into and follow up with. And then I just did want to circle back to your CAST question, because similarly to the math conversation, there are so many levels to that and layers, but the CAST test does expect students to be in 3 years of science. And we're not necessarily doing that, and I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but those are all things that we can look into and look at that system of how are we preparing students to be successful and to show their knowledge in a way that makes sense.
Some of this data is really difficult to articulate because it's embedded in the dashboard. So it's not a true, here are all the AP students. It's within that category of met or were deemed prepared based on the criteria in the dashboard.
I had one other question, and we talked about how many years of science or math. How, and I know that I looked it up in the grad requirements. Tell me if I'm wrong. It said we needed 3 years of English. When did we decide to go to 4 for our graduation requirement? I mean, you might not know that. I get that, and I understand that, but I just am curious on what made us decide that it's 3, but we decided to have 4. Does anyone know that, or?
I have
Probably
only
not.
been here for 20 years, but I know that existed before my time, and I invite my Burroughs High School friends to comment on that. I imagine in my conversations with our amazing teams at the high school that there was a commitment. As we know, literacy is in every content area, right? So likely that was the commitment, right? Having that strong written communication. And we know that literature and literacy helps us be critical thinkers. So that's what I imagine the justification may be.
I mean, I've been here forever, but Mr. Ferris has been here longer than me. But I don't know, forever. And I can't remember if it was 4 or 3 when I was in high school, so I don't know if he can remember, but do you remember? Yeah. How about you?
I think we need a transcript analysis. Will you be turning those in?
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Thank you, Dr. Safko, for this presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll let you move your slide back to where it needs to be. We have no public hearings. We'll move on to item 6, reports and communications. 6.1, student board members report. Brody?
From Murray Middle School. The avid students at Murray Middle School recently completed their Coins for a Cure campaign and successfully raised over $500 to donate to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. This initiative highlights our students' commitment to community service and philanthropy. Following the holiday break, students have returned well-rested and ready to engage in the second semester with renewed enthusiasm. First semester aids will be distributed shortly, marking the transition into the next phase of the academic year. Basketball season is now in full swing, and we are eagerly anticipating our first home game next week. The teams are enthusiastic and prepared to showcase their skills on the court. Mr. Wolf has recently assumed the role of assistant principal. He is diligently working alongside students and staff to ensure a safe and secure campus environment, fostering a supportive and productive atmosphere for all. Upcoming events. The district spelling bee on the 29th of this month. Our students are preparing with great dedication to represent our school proudly. Valentine's Dance on February 7th. This event is highly anticipated by our students, promising an evening of fun and community building. District LCAP meeting. We are honored to host the District LCAP meeting on January 30th, which will be a vital forum for discussing district goals. Collaboration with Monroe staff. We continue to collaborate closely with the Monroe staff to ensure a seamless transition for students moving to China Lake Junior High School. This partnership is crucial in maintaining continuity in our students' educational journey. As always, go Mustangs. From Monroe Middle School. Happy New Year from James Monroe. This month, we will celebrate first semester student success at an awards assembly, and basketball kicks off the season with its first home game against St. Anne's. Tiger athletes have been practicing hard and working to keep grades up, so we are excited to see them on the court. Always striving to do what's best for students, Monroe's instructional leadership team implemented an improved advisory intervention and enrichment program to provide more targeted small group support in preparation for state testing this spring. Classes are refreshing their social contracts to start the second semester focused and ready to go. We were excited to learn this week that James Monroe has been selected for a $2,000 reward and invited to participate in the grand reopening of the new Albertsons at 9 a.m. on January 29th. With such a strong start to the semester, James Monroe is looking forward to a successful finish. From Mesquite. While it has only been 7 days since our last board report, 7 school days, we had 3 more graduates, bringing our total to 14 so far this year, and a few more on the horizon in the coming weeks. After the field trips, spirit days, and exciting culminating activities of last semester, students are already planning events for the second half of the year, from prom to the theme park visit for on-track students. Also, thank you for inviting our students this evening to greet the community. We are hoping to use this opportunity to help students better understand local government and their role. Students have the opportunity to participate in a free dental cleaning on the 28th, thanks to our community school coordinator, Mrs. Kristen Simpson. Now that grades are finalized and transcripts can be reviewed, students will have an award ceremony recognizing academic achievement across the last semester, including things like Most Improved, Honor/Merit Roll, and EL Progress. The award ceremony will also teach our newest batch of students how to use the credit check process to set a goal for their graduation. Go Dragons, show them how to soar. And from Burroughs. As we enter the new semester here at Burroughs, we have a few things to share. Firstly, Rebecca Dickey and Julia Wynn have been named California All-State Choir members. We congratulate them for this great achievement. Drama is preparing the spring play, Annie, which will feature students from the elementary and secondary grade levels. We have our winter rally and the King of Hearts dance at the end of this month. The rally theme is Camp Burrow, and all the spirit days are camping themed. The dance theme is Garden of Dreams, and the sophomores have been working hard on the decorations. Grades for the first semester were mailed home to parents this week, and the 2025-2026 master schedule has started creation. 25 principals of engineering students will have the opportunity to pilot a pre-apprenticeship program funded by a new grant. Our winter sports are in the middle of their seasons. They have all been playing well, and we look forward to successful seasons for them. Our basketball teams play on Tuesdays and Thursdays this month. Wrestling had their senior night last night. For individual contests, please check the borough's website. And of course, we hope to see members of the board attend these school activities and everything after. Go Boroughs.
Thank you, Brody. We'll move on to item 6.2, reports from members of the board.
I did want to make a comment. I know we had a meeting right after our annual conference, but there was one specific presentation that I attended that didn't really talk about at our last meeting, and I wanted to kind of highlight it because I think it really has a huge impression on how we move forward. And that is beginning to develop an understanding of what the effect of artificial intelligence will have on all of our lives in the very near future, as it's already affecting us significantly now. And I think it's really incumbent of the board to recognize what a significant shift this can provide to all of our lives, both in the way of harm that can be caused and benefit that can be reaped. And we've got to be very diligent, I think, to try and understand as much as we can exactly how and why things will change with that adaptation. And if any of the projections that are being thrown out there are accurate, it will be a significant difference in all of our lives in very short order. So I think we need to take that very seriously as we move forward and understand that the challenges that we face in education today are significant, but what we need to target for how we prepare our students for the future will be changing daily as we understand what exactly the future is becoming. So I just think it's really important that we recognize that as a significant issue that we're going to be dealing with.
Mr. Rockwell?
Yeah, I figured with the presentation earlier, I better say something. So let me start by reading part of my resignation letter. I'll read it, so I hope we can get through it. So, and I'm already having a tough time. So, serving on the board has been, for more than 18 years, has been one of the highlights of my life. We've worked through many challenges, from recessions to 6.4 and 7.1 earthquakes to the pandemic, just to name a few. Throughout, we've provided a quality education for our students and great professional opportunities for our staff. We've built new schools and modernized the others. We've implemented countless programs to enhance educational opportunities. We've always had what is best for students at heart, and that has driven every decision we've made, and I'm very proud of the work that we have done as a result of that focus. I've worked with so many amazing fellow board members, administrators, teachers, and other staff that have made this journey a joy. I'll truly miss all of you, but I know the district's in good hands, and I look forward to seeing it grow and thrive from a distance. I want to point out that, you know, one of the great joys is the camaraderie we have as a board. Not to belittle my junior board members. In fact, I think earlier tonight we had probably witnessed Robert's finest moment as a board member. I mean, I thought it was great the way he went through the LCAP stuff earlier tonight. So good on you. But the two old guys down here, they've been here for the, well, 18 plus and 16 plus years of my journey. And, you know, we all take a hit in public for lots of things. Maybe some deserve, but I'd say 95% are, you know, kind of misinformed critiques, criticisms. I hope our newer board members probably have recognized that now that they've actually been in the seats here. But you couldn't find finer men than Mike and Bill. I started this by saying that this has been one of the joys of my life. It only pales in comparison when it comes to my family. I had all of my family that's actually in town still here tonight, although apparently Jace decided to drag a couple of them outside to change a diaper or something. I don't know what that was for. But my mom's here. She's supported me through all of this, and maybe even longer than the 18 years that I've been doing this. I won't say how long she's supported me because that would be inappropriate for me and probably her too. And my wife, who's been amazing through all of this. I want the public to know that we work hard to do the right thing day in and day out. So a lot of the decisions we make are hard, but we honestly, deeply care about the kids and always want the best. So please remember that as you listen to what goes on and when you hear the rumors around town about how stupid we are and how somehow we're going to make money off of doing something on the board. I don't know how that works. Remember that that's all noise. We're here to do what you need us to do, and I think we do a pretty good job. Interesting, these little cards that got handed out coming in the door. I assume there are lots of different ones. So mine says, go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Chris, we're on it. Here we go, baby. And thank you all, and this is not goodbye, but it's thank you. Thank you.
Top that one.
Well, I'll just tell you, Kurt, you've done this for 18 years. I'm 65 years old. I don't plan on being here when I'm 73, but, or 78, I guess, if I had it right. I don't know. But I just want to thank you. I appreciate all your hard work. I'm learning this isn't an easy job, and you don't make a lot of friends all the time, but you're right. We are here to help the kids and do whatever we can for our students. And most of us were students of Burroughs High School, so I think we all were. So, that's what it's all about. So thank you. And I also want to thank Pam Smith and Jeff, and I don't know who all was involved, but we have lights at Albertsons now, and they're nice and shiny for all our people that work there and all the people in Albertsons and the iced tea people that I go through every day. She was the first one that told me, Robert, they're on, they work. And I said, awesome. I really appreciate what we've done, April, and everyone, Dr. Moore. So thank you so much. Los Flores, I tell you, young kids, when they send you a note and you read those notes, it really does make a difference. And I want to thank you, Los Flores, for doing that, and we do really appreciate when all our students come to the door and we get to meet them. It really does make this job worth what we do. So thank you so much. And last, it was great to go to a Burroughs High School basketball game. I don't get to go to a lot of them because I'm usually officiating, but I got to go the other night, and it was great to see Carrie and Chris and Kelly back to work. Doing a great job, and it's great watching those kids. So thank you all so much. And I'll shut up.
Go ahead, Mr. Ruckel.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to add a PS to what I said before, because I lose my mind when I start having to talk about things like this. But I had a bunch of my kids go through schools here, and they got a great education. They had a wonderful time in athletics and arts, and and I think maybe a couple of them are watching this tonight, and I want them to know I appreciate this, and I'm grateful for what this district's done for them too, so thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to make a couple comments. I noticed an email the other day from Paul Delbeck about the classroom culture training, and I was very impressed that they set up training during the middle of the week as well as on weekends. It gives our staff a greater opportunity to take that paid training. So kudos to that. Mr. Rockwell, you made a comment about rumors. Want to dispel any. Kind of preempt this, my house is for sale, I'm in escrow. I'm not moving, well, I'm moving, but I'm only moving 3 or 4 blocks, same neighborhood, same district, so not going anywhere. So if there's any rumors out there that I'm leaving town, it's not true. Final thing, love you, Mr. Rockwell, we'll talk to you soon. So, all righty, move on to item 6.3, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Moore.
Thank you, President Scott, and Happy New Year to everyone. This is our first board meeting back in 2025, and wanted to echo my thanks to Mr. Rockwell for his 19 years of service. We will miss you, but we wish you well, and Chris, in your new adventures. This month is School Board Recognition Month, and I think your comments, Mr. Rockwell, were well said and apply to all of the board members that I have the pleasure of serving with up here, that they're working hard, countless hours in service of our students, staff, and community. And I just encourage the community at large and our staff to share their thanks with our board members for the work that they're doing. Our enrollment for month 4 is continuing to go down. It's 4,846 students. We're down 214 from this time last year, and our attendance rate is also going down at 89.7%. So the data that Dr. Savko was sharing with us earlier from last year, we're not at that level in these 2 metrics, and it's something that we're looking at carefully and closely. We're encouraged by some of the things we're doing for the reorganization and welcoming students back into our district for next year with some of our schools of choice and other opportunities. But it is a very serious situation that we should all be looking at, because lower enrollment means there's less staff and less resources to serve the students in the community the way we want to. And so that's something to be mindful of and to work together on. Since the last board meeting, I did want to highlight Murray Middle School teacher Aaliyah Washington was selected by Honored.org to be the Teacher of the Month, receiving a check and national recognition. And also thank you to the Daily Independent for the article highlighting her achievement and award. She's a great example of a hardworking, dedicated teacher, one of many that we have in our system who care for and educate our students each day. So congratulations to Ms. Washington. I also wanted to share the School of Choice Lottery took place earlier this week. And starting today, we started notifying parents with emails and Parent Square messages related to their student selection. And so there's no rumors. If parents already have students in our system, they received a Parent Square notification earlier today. And if they're not yet in our system to receive Parent Squares, they should be getting that communication tomorrow with a direct email. And all families should be getting a mailed letter as well. We want to make sure we get that message out to the families as far as, and it's one of 2 messages. Either you were one of the almost 600 students who were placed in one of our schools of choice, or you're close up on that waiting list, because the waiting list we have a very short waiting list in particular grades at schools. Many students got in, and we have more space available, so we continue to accept applications for our schools of choice. And if there's an open spot, it's now first come, first serve for those open spots, or you get added to that wait list. And so we're excited to continue filling those schools as we look to launch next fall. And next week, I'm looking forward to continuing our journey with LCAP, with our LCAP Advisory Committee. And that group will have the opportunity to look at the data that we saw earlier this evening from Dr. Savko's presentation and go deeper into it, and also start understanding and unpacking why, and then what are we going to do about it? Because that's what our local control plan is all about. what do we need, where are we, and how do we do better, and how do we make those decisions together locally? And I'm looking forward to those conversations. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Move on to item 6.4, report to the Board of Trustees by the Desert Area Teachers Association. Elaine?
Good evening, Board President Scott, I got that right. Superintendent Dr. Moore, and y'all. First, I just want to be really clear, like, obviously this is fun, and I love doing this at the end of a workday, especially after a 2-hour rehearsal. I love seeing y'all, but were we not just together like 10 minutes ago? So let's work that out. And then, I don't think technically I'm supposed to negotiate right now, but what's it gonna take to get coffee in conference room A when I'm there? Because there was no coffee in conference room A. So, we negotiated Friday and then Tuesday. The snacks were appreciated. I'm really glad for those, but, you know, Starbucks would be swell. To be fair, I'm the only one saying this, just so you know, but it comes from the heart. Okay, so we did negotiate, and we did get an MOU, which it's always great when we can do that. If I had my way, it wouldn't have come to that. Everything would have been handled differently. But this is how it works, and I am really grateful to be able to work with y'all and that we can resolve things, which is really great. And I'm also just grateful to be in this district with so many really awesome colleagues. And I'm also really grateful that it's 7 o'clock and almost time for bed. So I'll see you in a month, and please make it feel like a real month, not 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. We'll move on to item 6.5, report to the Board of Trustees by the California School Employees Associations. Sylvia?
Good evening. Hello, School Board President, board members, Superintendent Dr. Moore, staff, and community. Now, I know we are probably tired of hearing me talk about pay and how we need more pay and we need to work on our pay scale and how Panda workers make more money than our classified staff. I know that's your favorite. That is a huge factor in why we have such a huge turnover rate. Since December, we have had 26 job postings. Not only do we make less than Panda Express workers, we deal with a lot more. We get lots more put on our workload since we are so shorthanded. Yet, the pay does not match. We meet again at the end of the month for negotiations. We're hoping to see something different and work on our whole pay scale and not just part of it. At our meeting on Tuesday, we had an open discussion on any gripes or complaints that any of my members have. One big thing that has been brought up several times is contracting out for field trips and paras. We have spent so much money on those two items in the last few years, which is very disheartening to our classified staff. Why not put that money on our pay scale and have competitive pay, which could possibly attract more people wanting to work for the district? And we probably wouldn't have 26 or more jobs open. Another item of discussion was the fact that there are so many unanswered questions in regards to the upcoming school year. Lots of uncertainty and fear from a lot of staff, worried if they will have a job, if there will be enough room at each site for students, what's gonna happen if not enough students move over to the magnet schools, having consistent information being said across the board. One person is hearing one thing in a meeting and others are hearing different. We get info not too long before it goes out to the public, so we don't get a whole lot of time to digest it and understand it before parents start coming in and bombarding us with questions, but needing that information to be consistent. Things have changed from one thing to the next, 1 month to the next, and oftentimes our staff don't really know what's going on. We know that there's a lot of moving parts going on behind the scenes, but these deadlines are quickly approaching, and there's still so much in the air that has your staff worried for next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. We'll move on to item 6.6, communication from the public. The board will provide time during the discussion of each agenda item for members of the public to comment. At this time, members of the public may address the board on an item not on the agenda. Comments should relate to items of public interest within the board's jurisdiction. The law prohibits the board from taking action on items not on the agenda. If appropriate, your comments will be referred to staff response. When addressing the board, please state your name and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. In accordance with the board bylaws, the board will limit the total time for public input to 30 minutes. Those wishing to address the board beyond the 30-minute time limit may do so at the end of the scheduled meeting agenda. We'll open up public comment at 7:05.
Good evening. My name is Katie, and I recently started a Facebook group page called Padres de Ridgecrest. And since then, I have received many messages from parents facing health emergencies and issues like bullying, discrimination, and racist comments from teachers and students in our schools. Last night at the City Hall meeting, I was touched when our city police chief and police captain approached me, offering their support for parents dealing with bullying and discrimination in our schools. It's clear that many feel there is little accountability from the schools. Parents and students hesitate to report incidents and feel defeated in trying to stop the bullying and hatred. I want to highlight a story from a parent at Burroughs High School. She told me her child feels asking for help at school is pointless because it seems like the teachers have given up. Some students are even giving up on learning English and don't participate in class. This student shared that a teacher asked her in a frustrated tone, "Are you Chinese African? I have never heard of Nicaragua." These parents have opened up to me, sharing heartbreaking experiences. I offered to help them send emails to the right people, file formal reports or complaints, but many feel unworthy of using their voices. They often say things like, "Let God handle it," and believe they can't change people's hearts, choosing instead to turn the other cheek. With the upcoming holiday in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I urge you to emphasize the messages of diversity and equality in our schools. This issue affects many students, not just those who speak Spanish. Another parent shared that her child was sexually assaulted at Murray, but nothing could be done due to a lack of proof, and her child didn't feel safe naming the assailants. I understand some parents think this topic isn't suitable for children, but even kindergarteners are saying hurtful things on the playground. If they can express racist comments and separate themselves from others, they are at an age where they need to learn about the civil rights movement and the importance of embracing diversity. I know this firsthand because my son has both been a target and a witness of such hateful words. In first grade, another student repeatedly questioned if he was American. Proud of our Guatemalan background, my son explained where our family is from, but the other child insisted he couldn't play with the group because he's not American in his eyes. Sorry. The following week, when asked if he was a Christian and he responded no, he again was excluded from the group. I took this chance to teach my son that all of North America, Central America, and South America are part of America. I also suggested a geography lesson to our teacher to help the students understand that America is much bigger than just the United States. As I've shared my experiences in the Facebook forums, it's clear our children have a limited understanding of the world. I hope the school board recognizes its responsibility to teach our children to be accepting and to hold them and their parents accountable for their hurtful actions and words in our schools. I would also like to suggest some sort of collaboration with the police department to offer classes for students, parents, and even teachers so they may feel empowered to hold each other accountable, report, advocate, and stop the bullying. And here I have an email that I shared with a teacher, so you guys can see the kind of things that our children are dealing with.
Thank you.
Kathy McCoy, teacher at Pierce, and Vice President of Data. I had a question regarding the move as students from the Pierce neighborhood go to the Richmond neighborhood. There had been talk about extending Gateway, the road from Ridgecrest Boulevard to Gold Canyon to alleviate traffic flow. And then that became something that wasn't going to happen. It does seem like there's some movement there because the road has been, the path that cars had been taking had been graded. Currently, those students who are coming from Pierce, who will be Richmond's students next year, don't have a clear path to get from the neighborhood to Richmond. They will either need to go through the desert, or they will need to walk along the road that leads to the base and to the corner of Richmond Road. There was a sidewalk that was built up to Gold Canyon Road, but currently there's been nothing else. So I was curious, and I'm sure other parents are too. It would be wonderful if more could be said about what's going to happen there with ensuring the safety of those students, because that desert is not always a safe place, and it's got quite a lot of garbage and stuff in it. And so that is something that I've kind of been wondering, and some other teachers, as we see our students make the move to that new neighborhood school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before I began my time, I wanted to tell Mr. Ferris that it's not artificial intelligence that you need to familiarize our children with, because in 6 months, artificial general intelligence will be out there, and it'll be way different than what they can get off ChatGPT now. And I wanted to address something else.
Okay, please state your name and your
My name is Charles Williams, and I wanted to start with a message, since we're getting ready for Black History Month. It refers to a teacher who was a part of creating history herself. The simple comment that she said was, if the child is willing to come to school and I'm getting paid to teach her, then I will do my job. This teacher's name was Barbara Henry in Jim Crow South, New Orleans. The student that she showed up to school to meet, she thought it was going to be more than one, but it was just I believe she was 5 years old. Excuse me, my remembrance on the history. But this was Ruby Bridges. And at this time in the South, the bullying was going on for her as well, not just the student. Bullying is more than just a mean word, just in mean words. It damages confidence and creates fears. Now, notice that you guys were talking about attendance and the showing up for the schools. If these schools aren't safe places, then how is anybody going to want to go there? The beginning of school starts in elementary. And if most of these kids begin their bullying career in elementary, then there's nothing that is going to change it, because they're going to school, they're facing the bullying, walking home facing the bullying, and God forbid if their parents allow them on social media platforms, because that's even more bullying, which leads to what Mr. Ferris was bringing up, because there is an uptick in kids going to artificial intelligence to find friends, and that should never be the case, where you turn to technology for friends when you're in the middle of a school with a whole bunch of children around. Now, I did write a little bit longer speech, but as I'm running out of time, I just want teachers in particular to remember Barbara Henry as we go into this Black History Month, because that lady did something at a time where it was hard to do. And I'm pretty sure we can push through whatever we have to make sure these kids feel comfortable in today's time and age. Thank you.
Thank you.
If he'd like to leave us a copy of his speech, we can see that the board gets a copy of that, I think, right?
Yeah, you can leave that with us. Yeah, we'll make copies and pass it on out, or they'll scan it and email it to us.
Oh, I didn't stick to this speech. I
Well,
phrased
no,
it.
but
But you just mentioned that you had a longer speech, so if you would like us to have that, we can see that it gets printed. Thank you.
any further comments? We'll go ahead and close public comment at 7:14. Move on to item 7, Educational Administration, 7.1, Approval of Opportunities for Learning Charter Petition. Dr. Moore?
There we go. All right. So we have recently heard from, oh, there we go again, turned off on me. We recently heard from Opportunities for Learning staff a couple months ago at a board meeting where we had a public hearing and a presentation. And as promised, we are bringing that back for action. They have submitted a formal charter petition, which we did an informal initial review, which was attached as Exhibit C. Then worked with their staff on a comprehensive response with lots more information that resolved all of the questions and information that we were looking for. And so as a result, we have no outstanding findings of fact, which means in our review, they meet the statutory requirements for a charter petition to be approved, and we have no reason that it would not be approved at this time. And so based on all of this analysis and much work and energy on behalf of our staff and theirs as well in the collaborative process, we recommend that the Board of Education approve their charter petition, which would be a 5-year approval cycle. We have multiple checkpoints and monitoring that we would be doing in that time period. Contingent upon an MOU. So a standard practice would be if we vote to authorize them, we would then enter into an MOU that just outlines the arrangements and some of the expectations and timelines. We're both agreeable to move forward in that process. And as long as we have that MOU that's ratified by their board and ours by the end of January 30th, we should be in good shape for them to start as a charter under us instead of as a satellite campus currently as they operate under the William S. Hart District. And so that is our recommendation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And their staff is also here, should you have any questions for them.
Move recommended action.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the board?
I'd just like to thank them. Dr. Moore and I got to visit over there at their school today, and I was very impressed. I've always wondered what happens there, and it was very educational, and I got to see a lot of kids working hard and doing things, and a lot of teachers who were getting after it. So thank you again for your time for us to be able to visit today.
Mr. Ferris?
I guess I'd just like to make the comment that I am looking forward to us working together meet the needs of kids. So that's what we're here for.
Mr. Rockwell?
Yeah, so I ended up having a daughter to go through Opportunities for Learning. As luck would have it, she was determining that Burroughs was not the place for her about a week before the pandemic hit. So she ended up at Opportunities for Learning and stayed there through graduation, and she did well. So it was a good place for her when, more conventional, if that's the right word to use, facilities and resources were not perfect. So my experience with Opportunities for Learning was a good one.
I think all kids need different modalities of learning, and this is a great opportunity for kids who need that type of outlet or whatever they need at that time. So I'm looking forward to it as well. Yeah.
Any further questions from the board? Comments? Any questions from staff or the community? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Brody, I'm sorry. Brody, what is your vote down there?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. The rest of the board, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. So, and they're going to bring coffee to room A for, I think I saw that in the MOU. So, thank you very much. We'll move on to item 7.2, approval of Sierra Sands Unified School District 24-25 School Accountability Report Cards. Dr. Safka.
Good evening again. Our first presentation contained the majority of our accountability data. This is an interesting duplication of efforts in the accountability world from the state of California, which has nearly identical information in it.
For the
However,
record, we're working on that.
good. Thank you for that. So it is required that we post our school accountability report cards, which we do. It is also required that the board approve those. They're currently posted per usual on our district website. It's recommended that the board approve the school accountability report cards for the 24-25 school year as presented.
Move recommended action.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions from the board, staff, or community?
I have a comment that refers to my smart aleck remark. Indeed, last year, California School Boards Association promoted a law that causes the legislature to have to review all the required reporting by the Department of Education. And the whole purpose of this is so that we can take a look at what's being required and do some consolidations and some refinement, so you're not spending so much time reporting on reporting. I am really pleased. I think this is something we've heard complaints about for years and years, and I believe it has finally brought it up to a place where something will have to be done about it, and I'm excited about that. So
I appreciate that advocacy. It seems that we're still caught in the plan-demic. Thank you, sir.
Any further questions or comments from board, staff, or community? We'll have Brody's preferential vote.
Aye.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to the board. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, Dr. Zafko. Move on to item 8, policy, approval of United or updated board policies and administrative regulations. And who's presenting that? Dr. Moore.
Yes, thank you, President Scott. So we had our Board Policy Review Committee meet recently, and that's with Mr. Campbell and Mrs. Campbell. Reviewed a number of bylaws, exhibits, policies, and regulations. You saw the minutes from that committee highlight our conversations, and it is recommended that the board approve those updates to bylaws, policies, regulations, and exhibits as presented, but we are also happy to answer any questions you may have.
Move to recommended action.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from staff or community? We'll start out with Brody's preferential vote.
Aye.
Move on to the board's vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Move on to item 9, personal administration, 9.1, adoption of resolution number 2024-25, determination of seniority among certificated employees with the same first paid date of service. Mr. Earl.
President Scott, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Moore, community, and staff. The purpose of the resolution that creates the tiebreaker is in the case of what's referred to as a reduction in force. We are not in a position where we are planning to have a reduction in force. However, as we manage declining enrollment and as we get through the schools of choice and seeing where people land and so forth, there could be a situation where we may be overstaffed in one or two areas. We don't know. But if we don't approve this resolution, we will have no capacity to address that in the coming about 6 weeks. So that's why we're bringing it to you. It's not because we plan on or anticipate reducing our faculty or certificated staff. This is just in case. And I would say that the financial implications, it says none. It probably should say unknown, because a lot of what we're dealing with is unknown. As Dr. Moore indicated, it appears as if our schools of choice have attracted some families and some students who are not currently in the district, who appear to be returning to the district. which would be a great trend, and it would cause us to be more, to maintain more of our programs and so forth. So it is recommended that the Board of Education adopt resolution number 2024-25 for reducing or eliminating certificated services for the 25-26 school year as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from staff or community? Brody, you'll be sitting this one out since it's a personnel action, so the rest of the board, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. We have no general administration items. We'll move on to item 11, construction administration. 11.1, report to the board, construction activities and issues. Mr. Moore.
Thank you. President Scott, Superintendent Dr. Moore, board members especially, one final recognition, Board Member Rockwell, and members of the community. I'm Jeff Moore, Facilities Director for the district. Here are some construction updates. My dad used to say, son, the first 90% of the job takes the first 90% of everything, and the last 10% takes the other 90%. So it is with our Richmond site, the gem of our school district elementary coming up soon. Our construction management company has been working hard to bring this over the finish line. We are looking great, and we have every indication that we're going to meet our ribbon cutting ceremony projected date. Meanwhile, here are some things that we're getting done. This is concrete now. Most of it is actually concrete. These photographs are 1 week old, and they've been laying concrete since then. It's about 95% done. Some of the final pours, some of the hardscaping, and infrastructure has been in. Now it's buried under concrete. There are two things you can see in this photograph. Number one, the sump pits now have their safety fences all around them, and that's how they will remain. The second thing are these temporary power poles, which thankfully today we finally got the power meter installed on campus, which means, yes, we can finally flip the switch on, put some power, and test everything from ventilation, lighting, alarms, safety systems. We're on track to finish those testing processes. Hopefully, I'll be able to give you a better update on next meeting's board meeting. I'll keep you posted. The awnings and shade, as we discovered this summer, are necessary. Those are about 90% complete. Wanted to update you with that. We're still installing the technology systems. The furniture is impending, and we'll touch on that in just a moment. Subtle adjustments are being worked on to make the marquee elementary school, Richmond Elementary, something that the contractors will brag about and our school will boast for years to come. That's my January update. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to address those. Thank you, President Scott, members of the board and community.
Any questions or comments? Then we'll move on to item 11.2, adoption of resolution number 22-2425 to enter into an agreement with Meteor Education LLC for the purchase of furniture and installation services for the new Richmond Elementary School pursuant to the Omnia Partners and Region 4 Education Service Center contract number R191810. Mr. Moore.
We're asking for the adoption of resolution, I have number 2425 written here, to enter into an agreement with Meteor Education LLC for the purchase of the furniture and installation services to the new Richmond School. Meteor Education is a corporation that provides what I would call non-standard. You're not going to see the kids sitting in rows in every classroom looking at the back of the next student's head. This is part of what California's education initiative is to move into the 21st century model of education. That's exactly what we're satisfying here. Pursuant to Public Contract Code 10290 and 10298, the governing board of the district may, without competitive bidding, and this is an important component, use contractors who are in a competitive bidding list. We've done that and vetted this, and I was actually speaking with the Superintendent, Dr. Moore, earlier when we went to the pricing, and then we went back to the pricing and renegotiated, and then we went back to the pricing and renegotiated. We've come across the financial implications for supplying all the furniture to the new Richmond campus of $1,059,440.99. This is within, we had initially budgeted just under $900,000, which this makes it within estimated parameters where we would go above or below. And this is important. This will be funded through what we call Fund 40 funds. That means that the military is going to pay for 80% of this furniture, and we've already budgeted for the other portion. It's recommended that the board adopt this resolution and to enter an agreement with Meteor Education for the purchase of furniture and installation services at New Richmond Elementary pursuant to the Omnia Partners Region 4 Education Service Contract R191810 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the board?
I have a little comment. I actually looked them up, and they're from Florida, and so they're American made. So I was like, okay. Just looked at their furniture and what they do instead of just having it butt up against each other. They kind of like fit in as a puzzle. So they may create more of a community type of thing. So
Absolutely.
Just
The
different,
organic learning
Different.
environment is really terrific.
yeah, just
Any further questions or comments from the board?
classrooms will look different.
Any questions or comments from staff or community? We have a motion and a second. We'll start out with Brody's preferential vote.
Aye.
Move on to the board. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Move on to item 12, Business Administration. 12.1, approval of an agreement with ARC Alternatives for consulting services associated with the implementation of district-wide solar generation. Are you going to take that, Mr. Moore? or-
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry, I had Pam on it.
The board approved in May of 2024 an energy services contract with Luminace for the district-wide implementation of solar systems. The estimated energy cost savings associated with the breadth of that project is estimated, again, to be a savings of about $11 million. ARC Alternatives has been involved in this particular transaction since the very beginning, and their experience goes from project management, design review, construction support services, the whole gambit from soup to nuts, as my dad used to say. The financial implications of hiring ARC Alternatives for this oversight will be about $162,420. An important note, this would come out of Fund 1. Why would this come out of our general fund? That's because that's the fund we use to pay our electric bill. And this $162,000 up front, we estimate over the period of having this solar would be reimbursed a savings of about $11 million. It's recommended that the board approve an agreement with ARC Alternatives for consulting services associated with the implementation of district-wide solar generation as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the board? My only comment about solar is I just wish I would have gotten mine sooner. I've had mine for like 17 years and just wish I would have gotten it sooner.
Yeah, I was, so every time we go to CSBA and we walk the trade show floor, there's a ton of solar folks that are, trying to twist our arm and get us to do something. And, and I talk to them every year and I come back thinking, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing this? And I'm really thrilled that we're doing this now. So good on anybody that is working to get this over the line. Thanks.
Absolutely. Any questions or comments from staff or community?
I just wanted to clarify, Mr. Rockwell, we wanted to wait till after you were gone, so you couldn't take any credit.
Yeah, appreciate it. And I said some stuff about you earlier that I'm not sure I really meant, so.
I was aware of that.
I was aware of that. Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll start out with Brody's vote.
Aye.
I need to coin that, Brody's vote. Yeah, yeah.
I like it.
Move on to the board. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That'll be unanimous. Move on to item 12.2, acceptance of the 2023-2024 audit report for the Sierra Sands Unified School District. Now, Ms. Smith. Sorry, Pam, I had you on the previous one.
Magic touch.
Green light should come on.
You just gotta do real soft. There you
Thank you. I was pushing too hard. I would like to point out that we have Andrew Park from Eide Bailey on the line via remote teleconference in case there's any questions associated with the audit report that I'm unable to answer. Okay, so, good evening, President Scott, members of the board, Superintendent Moore, community and staff. In accordance with Ed Codes 35-145 and 41-020, the district must conduct an annual audit and report the findings of the audit to the board. The audit report has been prepared by the auditing firm of Eide Bailey LLP and has been provided for review. Staff has reviewed and created an action plan to address each of the areas identified. And I would like to point out that this year there were no state compliance findings, there were no federal program findings, and there was one financial statement material weakness finding related to year-end closing processes where some of the balances had been posted inaccurately, and the district has developed a checklist to prevent this from happening in the future. It is recommended that the board approve the 23-24 audit report for the Sierra Sands Unified School District as presented.
Move to recommend action.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Rockwell?
Yeah, I'm just thrilled that that Eide Bailey came back this year. I think last year there were some challenges, and appreciate them continuing to work with us. I also remember last year, I think there were some more significant findings, than we had this year. So we've got good people working for us, and we've got good results that are coming out of these efforts, and so I appreciate everybody, Pam, you and your staff, and our auditor to get through all this stuff and keep us on the straight and narrow where we ought to be. Thanks.
And I would like to give Miss Connie Williams some credit too, because this is the first time in several years that we've had our audit completed on time and had it to the board when we're supposed to have it on time, and data was collected in a timely manner so that the auditors could get their job done, and they have actually reduced the price per audit next year because of that.
Nice.
So we owe her some kudos for this result.
Thank you for recognizing staff like that. It's always nice to hear. So, any further comments or questions from the board? Any comments or questions from staff or community? We'll start off with Brody's vote.
Aye.
Move on to the board. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Move on to item 12.3, adoption of resolution number 21-2425 of the Board of Education of the Sierra Sands Unified School District, declaring the results of the school bond election held November 5th, 2024, establishing a Citizens Oversight Committee to oversee bond expenditures and other related actions. Ms. Smith.
So as we all know, a general obligation bond election was held in the Sierra Sands Unified School District, and that bond was approved by at least 55% of those voters voting on the measure. The board is now required to establish a Citizens Oversight Committee and appoint members to ensure that the proceeds of the general obligation bonds are expended only for the purposes set forth in the election resolution and Measure AA approved by the voters. The attached resolution authorizes the board to declare the results of the election, to perform several procedural functions associated with certification of the bond measure results, and establish the Bond Measure Oversight Committee and appoint committee members. There are no financial implications associated with this resolution, and it is recommended that you adopt Resolution 21-2425, declaring the results and establishing the Oversight Committee.
Move recommended action.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the board?
I have a comment, but I can't get my microphone to work.
Touch it lightly.
It worked every other time. There we go. I just want to thank those who are willing to serve on this oversight committee. There are many jobs in this district that are kind of thankless, and this is probably one of the ones at the very top. So thank you for the willingness to do that, to serve our community this way. And I want to draw attention to Dr. Hauk in the audience, who is on the list, and the other folks who have stepped up to do this. Thank you.
I'll ditto that and want to go back a little bit further. I want to thank everybody that helped make this happen. You, your spouses, your family, the friends of Sierra Sands, all this would not have been possible without the work that you guys did. So any further questions or comments from the board, staff, community? We'll start out with Brody's vote.
Aye.
We'll move on to the board. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. We will temporarily adjourn the regular meeting to conduct the Indian Current School Financing Authority Board of Directors meeting. Move on to item number 1, adoption of the agenda. Any changes?
No changes.
Item number 2 is approval of minutes of the regular meeting of December 19th, 2024. Any corrections? Minutes will stand. Item 3, acceptance of 2023-2024 audit report for the Indian Current Schools Financing Authority. Ms. Smith.
Background is fairly the same in terms of Ed Code requiring us to do the audit. The ICSFA received an unmodified opinion indicating that the district's fiscal procedures and controls were implemented appropriately and followed Ed Code and other regulations. There were no material weaknesses or deficiencies found in this audit. It is recommended that the 23-24 audit report for the Indian Current Schools Financing Authority be accepted as presented.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the board, staff, or community? And Brody, you're not a part of the Indian Current, so we're going to leave you out of this one. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. We'll adjourn the Indian Current School Financing Authority meeting, go back into the regular Sierra Sands Unified School District meeting, move on to consent calendar.
Move the entire consent calendar.
We have a motion and a second, and Brody, you are allowed to vote on this one since there's no personnel, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Brody, your vote?
Aye.
And we'll move on to the board. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. We will then move on to item 15, future agenda. Any future agenda items?
I'd like to add a future agenda item to double the length of the board meetings, beginning 60 days from today, if that's okay.
Sure, we can discuss it.
Was that a fly I heard buzzing from there? Any, on a, would we request to put on the procedure for filling his? Would that just be automatically done, or do we need?
Yeah,
an
either
action?
way is fine. We don't need action on that.
Okay, all right. Any further future agenda items? Having none, launch. I kind of did this one for you, Mr. Rockwell. Opportunities don't happen, you create them. So with that, we'll move on to adjournment. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education will be on February 20th, 2025. You guys enjoy the rest of this month. It's going by quick.